May I have your attention? We're ready to begin session 3, affordable and safe housing. The facilitator for this session of affordable and safe housing is Resea Willis. She is the president of Brunswick Housing Opportunities. Ms. Willis is a rural housing advocate who educates, equips, and supports the empowerment of rural individuals, communities, and community-based organizations. As the servant leader of BHO, she builds a platform that uplifts the workforce and vulnerable populations to obtain housing with the amenities that raise the level of well-being for all. Ms. Willis fights to create space for others to speak their truth and obtain justices needed to raise families, build wealth, and honor our elders through access to loans, credit, equitable disaster recovery resources, and community development. Please give a round of applause for Resea Willis.
Good afternoon. I am a preacher's kid. Amen. And so we're always taught to be prepared for whatever may come. Two of my panelists weren't able to be with us today, so y'all pray for them. But we're going to move forward. I thank Velvet Jenkins for allowing me this opportunity. Thank you to our sponsors for this great summit. What I want to do is, I want to ask some questions, because y'all just became my panel. Y'all, these two people, the rest of y'all are my panel. Y'all realize that, right? Okay. All right, just as long as y'all know. So why discuss housing at a health conference? My home, your home, our homes. What words come to mind when I say home? Safety, comfort, memories. I'm sorry? Love, foundation, shelter. All of these make you think of home. So again, why talk about the intersection of health and housing? What is the link between housing and good health? And where are we now? Well, we're in a housing crisis. And it's only been exacerbated by the pandemic. That's to tell y'all we was in one before the pandemic. The Lower Cape fear is deeply rooted in historic system of culture of racism, and the resulting multi-generational poverty have set in motion a vicious cycle that perpetuates low educational attainment, high unemployment, poor health, and almost no generational wealth building for our workforce and the most vulnerable populations. Our panelists today, y'all show them some love before I even get started. Go ahead and show them some love. They kind of got up and said, hey, where's everybody else? I said, we gonna do this. So our first panelist is Sondra Collins. She's the Senior Vice President and Mortgage Community Outreach Officer for North State Bank. Ms. Collins leads the bank's efforts to help educate and empower the individuals and families in our communities on their path to home ownership. She is chair of the City of Raleigh Fair Housing Hearing Board, a member of the Raleigh Chamber of Commerce Government Affairs Committee, the executive chair of the North Carolina Project Lead, and the assistant to the regional vice president of the Triangle Chambers National Association of Real Estate Brokers. Ms. Collins also represents North State Bank on the North Carolina Bankers Association Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council. I don't even think I really need to introduce the other guy, but I will. This is my friend, Commissioner Jonathan Barfield. Commissioner Barfield has been a resident of New Hampshire County since age 1 and graduated from New Hampshire High School in 1984. He is the owner of Barfield and Associates Realty, LLC, and has been a licensed realtor since 1997. Commissioner Barfield serves as the president of Wilmington Regional Association of Realtors in 2007. He is a representative on the Cape Fear Public Utility Authority, Legion Stadium Commission, Local Emergency Planning Committee, Parks, Conservancy Board of Directors, and Wilmington Urban Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, Transportation Advisory Committee. Thank you both for being with us today. So I want to do some things, and I'm going to try to facilitate and educate and all of that at the same time. On your table are 2 handouts. And so I ask that you take them with them, not that you stop and read them now, but that you take them with you so that you can kind of understand when we begin to talk about that intersection of health and housing. These dedicated and community-involved professionals are here to underscore the intersections, the connections, the synergies between healthcare and housing in fostering and improving health outcomes, cost savings, and enhanced well-being for the general public, the essential workforce, our elders, and our most precious asset, our children. So that we don't get off course and we're all on the same page, let's start out with a shared definition of healthy housing. According to the World Health Organization and National Center for Healthy Housing, this establishes an evidence-based link between health and housing. It defines healthy housing as such. Healthy housing is shelter that supports a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. Healthy housing also refers to the physical structure of the dwelling and the extent to which it enables good physical health. The shelter should be structurally sound to provide shelter from the elements and from excess moisture, and by facilitating comfortable temperatures, adequate sanitation and illumination, sufficient space, safe fuel or connection to electricity, and protection from pollutants, injury, mold, and pests. Simply put, simply, decent, sound, safe, sanitary, culturally sensitive, and comfortable defines healthy housing. So let's delve into how we can be intentional about investing our time, energy, and resources towards implementable solutions to the crisis. So I'll start with the panel and say, please tell us some more about yourself, and then tell us from your perspective, where does health and housing intersect in your area of expertise?
And thank you. And first, I would like to definitely say thank you to Ms. Velva for inviting me to be a panelist and to represent North State Bank and to represent NC Project Lead and all the other organizations that I'm fortunate enough to be a member of. But as we talk about healthy housing and my expertise in that field, I don't know if any of us really are experts in that field. We all every day continue to try to figure it out. But I do have focuses, and my focus is home ownership, education, fair housing, and our homeless population. And so you have to have a focus. Sometimes I find myself all over the place. And I come into Wilmington quite often in regards to homeownership education, because we know for a fact that the African American community is one of the, especially there's an underserved community within our communities. And it always tends to be the African American communities. I was listening to the other panelists today, and I was telling my coworker, I was like, they could have spoken, just threw up their housing, food, health, because it's the same. It's the same conversation. It's the same group of people that's being left out. But We come into Wilmington, just like we do in Raleigh, and we reach out to people that do not believe that they can own a home. And it is possible. You know, the things that we are educated on are the things that we don't know. So no matter what we're talking about, I strongly believe that education in any area is always key. Fair housing, I know we have huge issues in Raleigh when it comes to fair housing. So myself and the board, we really go into our communities and we make sure that everyone understands their rights. We pass out tenant rights laws, and it's for the state of North Carolina. And that's one thing I have not, as much as I come here, I have not had any interactions or have ever heard from anyone from the fair housing for this area. I'm assuming you all have a fair housing board here, do you? Okay, but you know, so when we talk about affordable housing and fair housing, we're sometimes talking about the same thing, and we're sometimes talking about something different. And unfortunately, when we're talking about fair housing, our main focus are people that typically are leasing, and especially in today's time, landlords won't do what's required. And right now, we're having issues where the rents are going so high, people are being forced out. So just to give people their rights and give people resources, we have the legal aid of North Carolina, not the legal aid of Raleigh, not the legal aid of Wake County, not the legal aid of New Hanover and Brunswick County, the legal aid of North Carolina. If you all are aware of anyone, anywhere, that they think that they are being discriminated against, that they are having an issue, all they have to do is reach out to Legal Aid of North Carolina. And our homeless population, I was just reading that we have over 26,000 school students that are identified as homeless in the state of North Carolina. And they say 3.9% of children under the age of 6 are identified as homeless. And there are so many organizations. I'm really fortunate to be I'm part of an organization called CASA, and I think they even have some buildings here. But CASA focuses 100% to build housing, which are apartments, to really provide housing, safe, stable housing for that homeless population, or for people that's about to become homeless. And so you have to get involved, and I feel like I'm repeating what you all been hearing all day long. Mm-hmm. You have to join a board, raise your hand, have a voice, go down to city council, choose what it is. You can't do everything. The lady that was speaking earlier where her husband was saying you need to slow your roll, you know, but choose what is dear to your heart, get involved, and make a difference. And make a difference, and it can be done. We just raised $8.4 million for the first phase. This is money that we raised from organizations. The city of Raleigh gave us $8 million. Wake County gave us $4 million. The federal government gave us $2 million because we're building a 100-unit apartment complex to address homelessness. And we broke ground, and the trees are being removed, and a year from now, those people will be in, and it's multi-purpose. We already have everybody that's going to lease from us or come in, from the healthcare providers to daycare providers.
So you have wraparound services.
We have
then.
wraparound service, and that's what we have to do. So I'm talking about a group of people. I was part of a capital campaign where we begged more than Miss Juanita over there. But where we begged for money, and it is happening. it is happening. So
Yeah,
again,
thank you for that. Thank
but-
you for that.
but yes, you
Yeah, that
just get
sounds like
involved.
missionary work to me. Sounds like missionary work. So, Commissioner Barfield.
You know, this housing thing I've been a part of for quite a while. I've been a realtor since 1997. And the phrase I use is housing affordability. It's amazing when you say affordable housing, it means different things to different people. And oftentimes when you say affordable housing, folks think about black people and the projects. And the two have nothing to do with each other at all. As we approve housing projects within our Board of County Commissioners, people always look at people of color as needing affordable housing, but it really affects a broad range of folks. Housing should not exceed 30% of your income. That includes your mortgage, your utilities, and all those things should exceed 30% of your income. So whether you're living in Landfall or in Creekwood, you can be housing challenged based on what your income is. And folks need to look at those kind of things. You know, when Hurricane Florence hit in 2018, it really showed the challenges that we face here in our county when it comes to housing affordability. We had a number of apartment complexes completely shut down and evict their tenants because they had massive repairs that were needed. One of the last ones was the Gervais apartments. And what I found there is that folks were really reluctant to say anything because they recognize if they say something about the mold and the water coming in, they may be displaced. Well, guess what? They have been displaced. And since 2018, most of the folks have not moved back into their apartments, and most of those units have not been repaired. And it's so important we recognize that there are so many that are living in what I would call unsafe housing. When I look at the term here on the sheet, and the question was about healthy, safe housing, or healthy, affordable housing, those two words don't go together right now. You can have affordable housing that may not be healthy, or you can have healthy housing that's going to cost you a good bit in our community. And what I mean by that, rents continue to go up, property values continue to rise. I've got a client that's looking for a townhome under 350 in our community, under 300 in our community. As I met with her last week, there was one in the whole county between $150,000 and $300,000. One. That's a townhome. Now look at the apartments that are happening in our community, where most are renting for $1,200 and up for the average person. You need roughly $19 an hour to be able to maintain the average two-bedroom apartment in our community. So what has the county been doing in these past several years? We took $1.8 million from our federal ARPA dollars and invested it in a new apartment complex called the Starway Project that will take place on Carolina Beach Road, helping to make housing affordable there, partnering with the city of Wilmington with their $3.8 million to help this developer build some affordable apartments. We've also given land to Habitat for Humanity. Several lots we've given, more than 10 lots we've given to that organization. We also had 15 acres of land in the Myrtle Grove area that was going to be used for a park, decided not to use it for a park, and gave that land to them as well so they can build some affordable housing there, not Masonboro, but Wrightsboro. We've also invested in water and sewer infrastructure for them, as well as providing water and sewer infrastructure for the Eden Village, which is a small home village for the homeless in our community. And those individuals are also challenged as well. Right now, when you talk about healthy, affordable housing, we have roughly 151 families that are living in hotels right now. You ask the question, well, how did that happen? Well, our housing authority failed to, in my opinion, do their job. They failed to maintain the properties that they had, and many of those units were infested with mold and other problems. And every resident, whether you're in the city of Wilmington or in the unincorporated parts of the county, you still live in the county. So our Board of County Commissioners felt an obligation to make sure that we're taking care of all the citizens, whether you live in the city proper or anywhere within New Hanover County. And so we are bringing on 4 additional case managers to help those individuals, number one, but also trying to help with some of the rental assistance that they need to maintain where they are right now. The crazy thing is that the housing authority just came to us where they're challenged financially. Apparently next week they won't be able to meet their payroll. So if they can't meet payroll, imagine the plight that folks that are living in those communities as well, and how much help they indeed need. So you have 151 families, which means that you have moms and dads as well as children. So imagine a child in a hotel trying to get fed properly, but also trying to get to school. Well, the school bus may not be coming to that particular hotel, but then imagine the hotel owner saying, well, we've got to move you from here because we have an influx of folks coming in. So now they're going to another hotel, And so the school system are bouncing these kids from school to school to school based on the address that they're in. These are some of the challenges that we face here in our community. And my Board of County Commissioners, we're really committed to finding ways, number one, to help that population in our community, but also make sure that others are served as well. We've had a number of apartments that come online that are utilizing federal tax credits. And we're always excited to see those projects come online because the rents will be subsidized or based upon a person's income. So it's going to make things a lot more affordable for individuals. New Beginning Christian Church is looking at building some affordable senior housing on their property. And as they won a tax credit a couple of years ago, prices rose with lumber and materials, so they had a pretty big gap. So our Board of Commissioners is going to find a way to fill that $1 million+ gap in financing to make sure they can indeed build those units as well. Again, when you say affordable housing that's also healthy, they don't go together in this county.
Thank you, Commissioner. I tell you, prayer works, doesn't it? Because y'all see Katrina on the end, right? I told y'all to pray for her. And thank you. So, Katrina, let me read your bio because I did that for everyone else. Katrina Knight, Executive Director of the Good Shepherd Center. Ms. Knight is Executive Director of Wilmington's largest homeless shelter. She serves on community and fundraising committees, oversees the daily operations of the center, and builds relationships in the community. Good Shepherd Center serves as an essential safety net to those in crisis. It has fed and sheltered thousands of hungry and homeless adults and families, and returned more than 1,200 men, women, and children to housing, ending their homelessness since its doors opened. Ms. Knight has received numerous accolades for her work and humanitarian efforts. Katrina.
Thank you, Resea. And I apologize. Usually I take timeliness very seriously, but today's not been my day, obviously. But certainly don't want to keep this crowd waiting. Really excited that there would even be a session connecting healthcare and housing. I will tell you, 20 years ago, if you worked in homeless services and you were writing a grant proposal or seeking funds from a foundation or community supporter, and you wrote about the connection between homelessness and healthcare or helping households back to housing and how that would improve their health, folks kind of patted you on the head and rolled their eyes, and it very much seemed like housing was considered this, an important thing for all of us, but kind of unto itself, kind of off to the side. And so all these years later, to hear people talking about indicators of health and just how close that connection is, we've come a long way. I feel like I don't constantly have to be explaining to people that housing is in itself a health intervention. It's a mental health intervention. And so that's really heartening that we've made some advances. And also today, whether other North Carolina communities or right here in our own community, we're beginning to see really good data that taking someone who has unstable housing or taking someone from a shelter and helping them regain their housing again almost automatically, to some degree, improves their physical health and their mental health as well, which seems so intuitive, and yet we really didn't take that for granted for a very long time. And so in my work, you can be a homeless service provider and just get caught up in the day-to-day triage of folks and all their individual and household crises. That happens to a lot of people around the country. But within homeless services too, over the years, a body of knowledge has really developed. There are best practices within homeless services too, and almost always they have housing at the core. The only thing that my homeless guests have in common or another community's homeless folks have in common is their struggle to attain and hold on to affordable housing. Not everyone who is unhoused has a mental health issue. Not everyone who is unhoused has an alcohol or a drug issue. The one thing that they have in common is around this housing issue. And so that's why years ago I felt like if I'm going to continue to work in homeless services, I have to first and foremost be an advocate around affordable housing, because there's no greater prevention of people in our community experiencing homelessness than having adequate units of housing that they can either own or rent. And by the same token, we can't be successful in helping people up and out of a housing crisis if we don't have affordable places to transition them to. So it's really about closing that front door into homelessness and opening up that back door out of homelessness too. Housing is very much at the core of it. A key reason I do not work at my old agency in another community is that I was told to shut up about the affordable housing crisis because that was too negative and that just sounded, so sad. Like, well, we work in homeless services. It's not all, it's not always rip-roaring fun, to start with, right? We're meeting people literally at the worst time in their lives, but we have to get at what the root issue is. Who wants to just be a witness to people suffering, right? Who wants to just say, well, 100 men, women, and children came in last night, and 100 men, women, and children are alive this morning, so didn't we do a great job? Well, any community can do that, but if we are responsible, we realize that we have the resources to do a lot more for people than that. And so, honestly, for those reasons, at Good Shepard, we are first and foremost affordable housing advocates and feel a real responsibility to educate the community, not just on who is without housing, but how more and more the conditions in our community lend themselves to people losing their housing or having a hard time holding on to their housing. A city-county comprehensive housing study where the results came out, unfortunately, right at the beginning of the pandemic, show that just in New Hanover County, 1 in 2 of our residents are housing cost burdened. That means they're paying way too much for their housing. And that's when I meet people. A lot of us, if we get in trouble, we might have family to fall back on, maybe a little bit of savings, a credit card, or what have you. But when before the pandemic, 1 in 2 of our neighbors were spending 50%, 75% of their income just on their housing, that math isn't going to add up forever. At some point, we all have a life crisis, a car breakdown that jeopardizes the job, that jeopardizes paying the rent. Those are the things that snowball into a veteran, a senior, a family losing the housing that they did have. And we meet the ones who don't have someone else to fall back on. So, Jonathan and I were both parts of the Cape Fear Housing Coalition 20 years ago. He has the picture to prove it. We looked a little younger. My staff pull out these photos and like, look how young you look. I'm like, shut up. But we were using the word crisis 20 years ago, and we were using the word crisis 15 years ago. And what I've started telling people is, since Florence, and now especially with the pandemic, and now we get calls from people who are not homeless, but a dad of a disabled child whose rent just went up $500 a month, and he wants to know.
They're trying to figure out, what do I do now?
Right, Katrina.
What do I do now?
Where do I rent instead?
What do I do now?
And I don't know who to. Oh, don't talk to me. Talk to my friend here, or talk to my colleague. None of us has that answer of where to point that household. So, what I keep saying is I no longer have the language for how bad it is. If it was a crisis back in the days where realtors were crying about not being able to find a $150,000 starter home for folks, boy, it's really beyond the point of crisis now. So, we all have to be advocates. We all have to help our elected officials understand that, you might think only some people care about this, but increasingly we understand how we only enjoy a shared quality of life, a high quality of life across our community when all of our neighbors have access to decent and affordable housing, and helping them understand that so that they continue to put investments behind it, but also having those conversations around your dinner table and on your front lawn when that person's saying, oh, Good Shepherd's talking about putting some housing down the street from us, that's just going to be terrible. We
have to be part of the solution.
Yes, we have to have the nerve to say,
forward,
actually, that's a good
have
thing.
to be part of
Right.
the solution. We all have to be part of the solution. I have one more panelist, then I'm going to I didn't have a bio on her, although I've been knowing her for about 10 or 15 years probably. I'm going to let Kim Gore Warm introduce herself.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Kim Gore. I am the Director of Homeowner Services for Warm. I've actually been with Warm a little over 2 years now. Real quick, prior to Warm, I actually did a lot of volunteer work in my county, which was Pender County. I was a founding member of the Pender County Long-Term Recovery Group. Firsthand knowledge of great Hurricane Florence and the devastation to my county, which led me here to do what I call from passion work to purpose-filled work. So at Warm, I'm taking a step to the left with regards to affordability in home, because our goal is to repair, rebuild, and restore hope for homeowners that don't have anywhere to go for repairs. Just a couple of stats for you. Our average Warm homeowner income is $17,000 a year. The lowest monthly income that I have seen was $494 a month. $10 in food stamps. That's not affordable as far as trying to maintain a home or buying repairs when building materials have gone up 30%. Labor to do repairs has increased enormously. And just finding basic things like a shower. We have a shower that's been on back order for 5 months, and that is stopping us from completing a rebuild. So again, the goal for us is to get that homeowner and family to remain in their home and just try to figure out and help them figure out the physical, mental, and financial aspects of home ownership. In some cases, back to our homeowner, they are an average of 67 years old. Usually it's a female head of household, even at that age. The other question is, who helps me when I need help? So they're hopeless in this case. So we have a home that once was affordable that has something, as we call simple, as trying to replace and repair a roof, that is now gone from $6,000 to $12,000 and $14,000. We manage our labor with volunteers so we can take that money that we collect from donations and grants and put it into material costs. So that helps us bridge a gap to where we can spend more money on the item itself. The things that we look at when we go in, we see people again in despair. The health portion of it is most of our patients, I shouldn't say patients, I'm sorry, homeowners have things like COPD, breathing issues, even lung cancer. Well, guess what? That's exacerbated by mold and mildew. Then we have to look at remediation. That is not an inexpensive action. When you can go into a house, particular house that is built before 1978, which you know has asbestos in it as far as paint and siding, that remediation could take all of the grant that we have allocated for the repair, which could be up to $30,000 to remediate. So again, we're back at not even square one. We're back on the back porch trying to figure out, where do we get the money? Where do we get the resources? How can we help this family and or families remain in their home? Most people, all people, value home ownership. When you start looking at a 60 and 70-year-old person and they want to keep their home and they're on the edge of the roof falling down or the floor and the floor joists caving in, there's no hope. We try to build hope. We try to rebuild the home, and we try to give them some sort of their ownership back, because at that point, they're feeling like they're losing their home and they're losing control.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's where we are as far as Warm and what we see with our homeowners.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining our panel. Thank you. So everybody's talked about the high cost of housing. So one thing we do know, it's all about the money, right? Whether it's the money to remediate a house, as Kim has talked about, whether it's the money to build housing, as Sondra or Commissioner Barfield has talked about. So let's talk about the money. Because we can talk about how we're going to fix the health, and we've got great health care providers in this room that can help us do it. But if you don't have money to renovate a housing that has mold in it, how can that house become healthy? So I'm going to go to each panel. Each of y'all have 2 minutes because y'all long-winded a little bit. So each, I'm going to cut y'all down. So each of y'all, I love them. I know everybody on this panel. I love them. So each of y'all have 2 minutes. Tell me about the money. Tell me what money do you think is out there, and tell me what is the gap that you need to be filled in your particular area.
I'm going to get mine out of the way. I'm scared of her. I'll talk about money and resources for home ownership. Listen, I'm going to speak really fast. There are resources out there for first-time home buyers. And, for example, North State Bank, we have a 100% financing program. We utilize the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency down payment assistance programs. And as you can hear, I said North Carolina Housing Finance Agency. So that means it doesn't matter where you live, what county. You can go out to their site, you can pull up your county and see how much money that you could possibly qualify for. And just to right quick, this is an awesome program. The program is 25% of your sale price, or this is just increased 2 days ago, or $40,000, whichever is lower. Of your sales, of your purchase price, is based on income and sales price by county. So I did pull New Hanover County, a single person making $42,000, $42,700. 2 people in the family making $48,800 would qualify for these funds. I mean, $40,000 towards the down payments of purchasing a home that can help you either buy more home or bring down that mortgage. You use it however it benefits you. Brunswick County, same thing. 1 income, $42,000. 2 income, $48,000. And in Brunswick County, this is for a new home or an existing home. There's a cap. In Brunswick County, the house cannot be over $295, and like I live in Wake County, our houses cannot be over $309. So that's how the program works. It is income-based, and there's a cap on how much your home can cost, and there's a few other things. I mean, the credit score, they look for a 640 credit score. That's pretty darn low. Through a program compared to traditional financing. So those type of resources are out there, and there's many other resources out there. And when I talk about education, and I'm ending, this is what I do. It's 4 of us with North State Bank, and I'm telling you now, if anyone in this room want to pull together a group of people, your organization, there's a lot of organizations, will come and talk to you. People do not know this. That is a lot of money on the table to fill some gaps. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner?
You know, money is a common denominator. As I mentioned, we have 151 families that are living in hotels right now because of mold within their apartments. And if you don't have the resources to fix it yourself, there's really not a whole lot of other options you can choose from in our community. From the county standpoint, we fund WARM to a certain extent, and recognizing the great work that they're doing in helping individuals stay in their homes. The city of Wilmington has a HOP program. They offer low-interest loans for homeowners that can go in and actually make these types of repairs to their properties. At the same time, there's a challenge of finding contractors that have the ability to go in and do the work and getting on their schedule with the escalating cost of materials as well, which also creates a challenge for homeowners. But my heart goes out to those that are affected. I just sold a home recently to an investor, and I've inherited a property from another realtor as a referral, and it was air property. And as I went into this home to put it on the market to show it to this prospective buyer, I look up at the ceiling, and there's a piece of plywood on the ceiling where they're trying to keep the rain from coming in. I walk around the home, the windows have broken seals, and there's wood rot all around the windows, and the flooring is coming up, and the renter is saying, please, can we stay here? When you buy the house, can we still stay here? Paying $600 a month, can we stay here? And I'm looking at the condition of this property, and these folks recognize that if they leave here, where are they going to go? They'd rather stay in that condition and have a roof over their head and maybe leaking as opposed to not. So for me, the financial piece is really what needs to be solved, and I don't have an answer for that one.
Katrina?
Well, I am chatty, but I feel like I gave y'all extra time earlier. So, you know, I'm so encouraged to hear that there is money out there for certain things, because we tend to only hear the sort of the negative. If there's an upside to the pandemic, you know, a lot of our communities have seen an influx of some assistance funds early on in rental assistance, and now it seems like there will be money, hopefully directed to affordable housing that wouldn't have been available to us were it not for the pandemic. And I'm specifically speaking to what they call home ARPA funds. And they might play out differently, you know, in different communities or counties, but I think we'll see some housing production out of that. I'm hoping we'll see some housing subsidy out of that. The kind of housing that Good Shepard produces, I think similar to your example with CASA, who we think the world of, is permanent supportive housing. And that's a best practice, really specific kind of housing that's targeted to your chronically homeless, the ones that we can't just rehouse across town and hope that the wheels won't fall off again. It's for those folks who have no income usually, or at best disability assistance, where 30% of their income is, you know, less than $300 a month to put toward rent and utilities. But if you invest in permanent supportive housing, that affordable unit with on-site supportive services, you can end the homelessness of folks who have lived in the woods for the last 8 years, or the gal that lived in her car in our public parks for 3 years. It's doable. It's a really heavy lift. The trick for us, the city, the county, our larger community, we all know we have a really acute need for more of those units. We don't have enough of them. They're all full. Raising the millions of dollars for brick and mortar construction is not easy, but this group could do it today, or we could certainly do it this year. The trickier bit is the ongoing subsidy. How do you help people gain and hold on to housing where they're never going to have more than that $500 or the $800 a month income? That's the tricky part, is how do you make up that difference? We typically are not able to get housing vouchers, which would honestly be the holy grail, and that would make us feel more confident in going forward and producing those units, because we would have some comfort that, okay, it's going to be just as nice for those residents 5 years in as the first year, or 20 years in. Because what you don't want to do is, you know, throw your hands up a few years into it. Oh, this was never workable for the long term. So I hope that's a bright spot that's coming, is maybe through the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency or others, that there'll be more options to subsidize the rents of our very lowest income folks, because traditionally we haven't had enough vouchers, or right now people who finally get a voucher for really the first time in our community, I would say the majority, as far as I am hearing, cannot find a landlord who will take that voucher.
They have the voucher, but it's still not enough.
Right.
It's
Or it's like
enough.
monopoly money. You know, it's not going to get the attention of a landlord who can get much more out in the market. So, you know, we have people running for office, probably in every community, I know in our community, who will say government has no role in affordable housing. Government should not be putting money in affordable housing. That is exactly where government should be putting their money. We pay taxes in part for the benefit of us all, right? I don't complain about paying taxes, because I think it's an investment in my community. So as much as roads or schools, we want the people who work in our community, who only earn $9, $10, $11 an hour, they need to be able to afford to live in the community that they serve. And we have all leaned on those people just today in one way or another. And they shouldn't have to commute, you know, an hour for a low-paying job, you know, to support the rest of us. So that has to be part of our advocacy, is no, you know, if I need $15 million the next couple of years to add another 50 units of permanent supportive housing, I will absolutely be hitting up individual people to make a donation toward that. I will write grants to foundations. I will try to get private money. And congregations and others will feel like that's an important investment in our community, and they will contribute. But absolutely, government has a role in that too. And the only times we've really pulled off anything meaningful as a community, as a country, almost always, it's been public and private together. So we have to have all those irons in the fire, but not always be pointing the finger to the other sector as if it is fully their responsibility. It really has to be both.
Yeah. So once again, it takes everybody at the table to make it work. I want to give 5 minutes, and Kim's going to forgive me, but I want to give 5 minutes to the audience to see if y'all have any questions of this panel. Yes, ma'am. You're going to have to use your outside voice.
So, this is a big concern of mine. I was born and raised here in Wilmington, and I have seen it grow ridiculously. And so much gentrification, and people have been forced out of their homes so that they can turn around and sell this house that yesterday was worth $50,000. Tomorrow they can sell it for $400,000. Where does the buck stop? Where does it stop? Where does it?
Capitalism at its best.
It is. It's on steroids. What? Where does it stop?
Panel?
Where is? Who's accountable? Now I understand that people can do all this stuff, and that's their right, quote unquote. But where is the right of the people that were born here and raised here and can't afford to live here? Where are their rights?
Thank you. Did we have another question or comment?
I can comment.
Okay. Commissioner Barfield's going to respond.
You know, that's been a topic in our community for a long time. Having grown up here, my father raised on Wrightsville Sound. As I go down to Wrightsville Sound, that whole area was predominantly black when I grew up. Luminous Station, my Uncle Buster owned that property. He hauled trash for the town of Wrightsville Beach. Luminous Station, where you see all those fine shops, that was his landfill back then. That whole area has transformed into something that's not what I recognized growing up as a kid. But to me, it's all about economics. You have individuals that, like on Wrightsville Sound, whose children, moms and dads passed away, children moved away, never came back, decided to put the property on the market and sold it. They weren't coming back here. They had nothing invested in this community to come back to, so they sold their property as opposed to holding on to it. And you see that happen more and more and more, where folks are looking at how can I put money in my pockets. And we all have the option of selling our homes or not selling our homes. And typically, in most of those cases, folks may not have much of a mortgage left on some of the homes that I see within the inner city itself. But to me, it's all about a choice of, how do I capitalize on this investment? For me, home ownership is a way to transfer generational wealth. And that's how black folks have done it for years.
Yeah.
We took grandmama and them's home and we passed it on to our children, to our grandchildren, and eventually someone was able to capitalize on that to provide for their college education and those kind of things. But in these days, I see more and more homes being sold to folks in neighborhoods that have definitely changed a lot.
Thank you.
Right quick, I think also, I've noticed in Raleigh, there are subdivisions, huge subdivisions, where the land has been purchased by corporations. That's one of the biggest challenges that we are having. So these houses and homes that you're talking about that's being purchased and resold at certain dollar amounts, they're mainly corporations, really. And so they're building full subdivision. The whole subdivisions are for rent only. At some point, the state of North Carolina is going to have to go back in the rule book and look at their regulations and look at their laws and make change. As we sit here today and we discuss all these different challenges that we're having, I can tell you, because I've raised my hand and asked over and over and over with fair housing and everything else, no one goes back and changes laws. And so there's no rent control, there's no what you do with a piece of land control, and so just let freedom ring. So I think until something is done at that level, to answer your question, nothing, I can guarantee you, nothing will be done.
If I could just add real quick, I mean, we have a tendency to be reactive. We're not proactive about anything. We let it be the Wild West, and then once it's off the rails and it's way out of our control, we try to rein it back in again, which is really hard. I'm so glad. I was going to bring up rent control. You know, rent control is illegal in North Carolina. But communities like, I think it was Orlando not that long ago, said, you know what, this is an emergency, and under emergency circumstances, we're going to at least put the brakes on. You can increase your rents annually or every couple of years, but by so much, not $500 on this poor person like overnight. You know, we could make those things happen, but it's not going to happen if those folks are not hearing from us, because again, a lot of people are in the ears of our elected officials, and they are being told that affordable housing is not a winning issue. And it's going to take the masses making phone calls, sending emails, helping them understand, oh no, not only is it a winning issue, but you have a responsibility to do something about this, and in some creative ways, not just production, but preserving what we already have. You know, what if we had a challenge in our community that, okay, you're going to sell your house and cash out at a really great time to be a seller? Would you consider prioritizing selling to a real live person, a household trying to get into home ownership, or who will at least keep it in their family for a period of time instead of an investor? Would you agree not to sell to an investor?
And
that would be a start.
And just to add on to that, because that's a pet peeve of mine, is that, and on to that, you could have incentives. You could have, the government could give incentives. The banks could give incentives. Everybody sitting at this panel could give an incentive to make that work. So when I tell you that everybody, I'm not on the panel, but let me talk for a minute. Everybody has to be at the table, and you can't come to the table empty-handed. You have to come to the table putting something on the table to make it work. You have to come to the table putting something on the table. If not, I'm going to guarantee you we'll be having the same conversation again, and nothing will have changed. I got one more person I can do, the doc.
So you guys really got to the crux of what I was going to ask, which is what are the legislative remedies? What are the corporate remedies? What models have been used in other cities like New York and California, where we know people cannot afford to live? The other piece that honestly stunned me when I moved to Wilmington is the amount of public housing, concentrated public housing. In other words, the projects. Honestly, a lot of big cities have gotten rid of the projects a long time ago. And when we see that level of concentrated poverty, we do tend to see more violence. We do, unfortunately, what we've seen is a community that can be easily taken advantage of and made homeless in an instant because they're seen as less than. So I'm wondering if our community has ever considered any community covenants, community agreements. You're a builder, you want to come in our community, how many affordable housing units can you place in your unit if you're going to build 500 and make a lot of money off of them? Have we ever kind of explored those type of remedies? I'm just curious to hear more about that.
Can I respond to that? I know I'm the facilitator.
No, you cannot.
And then I
No, you're not on the panel.
Okay. Go ahead, Commissioner Barfield. Go ahead.
You know, one thing you mentioned, it really alludes to inclusionary zoning, where you require developers
Yes.
or builders to include a certain number of affordable units in their project. And in North Carolina, that's not allowed. It's something that we can't compel any developer or builder to do. We can provide greater density, maybe as an offset for some affordable units within their property, but we can't demand that they put affordable units in what they're building. Care for Collective this past year spent roughly $10 million as a nonprofit here, buying up properties here so they can keep them as affordable rentals. Sunset South was a community off of Carolina Beach Road. The old Dove Meadows apartments were sold, and Housing Economic Opportunities, which is a subset of the Housing Authority, I believe, took those properties over. And as they built new homes there, the land was included free with the purchase of the property. But there was also a stipulation that there would be no rentals there, so therefore the folks couldn't sell to a landlord or to a property manager or someone of that stature. At the same time, they had to stay there for 10 years in order to capture the full value of the increase in value there. The realtor family is in the process of building some affordable townhomes off of Carolina Beach Road with the same stipulation. There will be roughly $250,000, which I guess is affordable from that standpoint. And it will be a 10-year period where you've got to hold on to it. There'll also be a covenant in there where it can't be sold to a landlord, so there'll be only be property owners. That way folks can build generational wealth there. But in terms of making a builder provide certain number of units that are affordable, there's no way that we as a county commission or city council can compel that to happen.
Thank you. My time is up. And so, in closing, I want to say this. You know, financial institutions, policymakers, housing developers, direct service providers, advocates, healthcare supporting providers, along with philanthropists, must understand that housing quality, that's where you live, raise families, work and play, your home, it is the cornerstone of your life. It supports the foundation of physical and mental well-being. We can no longer stand by the side of the road, waiting on someone else to clear a path, to build a bridge, to take a step, dare I say, a leap of faith. It must be each of us, in whatever discipline, area of work, or theater of influence we find ourselves in. We, that's all of us, we together must take action. Thank you. Thank you, panel.
Okay, while they get up, I'm going to say something. One of the things that we did not talk about that also are causing people to be displaced is the increase in property taxes. It is an issue. Even when we provide down payment assistance and create affordable housing, when the surrounding properties value go up, the people that you have helped barely can hold on to the homes that you helped them get into, that the city or whatever builder have built at those prices. So that's something that we're trying to get the city of Raleigh to like put a cap on that. If you're helping people, help them 100%. So it is a problem. It really, really is a problem. And you agencies need to get together. This is important. Your agencies need to get together. When people need assistance, they don't know where to go. They don't know who to call. Somebody in Raleigh, I headed it up with Fair Housing. I got the list of every agency, put down whatever resources that they create, that they offer, put it in one freaking place. And have it in each agency's offices. So when people need help, they can go into Habitat, they can go into the Good Shepard, they can go anywhere and pull this document and find what they need. We have to make things more simpler for people and providing resources. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can we give them another hand?